Thank you for joining us on this Sunday. Tens of thousands of Canadians remain without power today, more than a week after post-tropical storm Fiona hit Atlantic Canada and eastern Quebec. Hundreds of Canadian Armed Forces personnel are on the ground helping with that recovery effort, part of a domestic operation the military is increasingly being called on for in this country. For more on the response and the military's role, let's bring in the Chief of the Defence Staff, General Wayne Eyre. General, nice to see you this morning.
Good morning, Rosemary, and thanks for having me on your show.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming, as always. Before I talk about what hard work the Canadian Forces are doing out east, I do want to ask you about Ukraine, if I can, because I spoke to Ukraine's defense minister's advisor in the last hour. And of course, we've seen overnight that it looks as though Ukraine has taken back a key hub in areas that Russia claims it's annexed. So maybe I can just start by asking you, General, as a general, what do you make of what you're seeing on the ground and what you're hearing on the ground?
So first of all, it's excellent to see Ukrainian forces having taken Lyman. That is a key node, and it just shows the will and the ability of the Ukrainian forces. And we need to maintain our resolve in supporting Ukraine and their armed forces because this is quite likely going to be going on for some time.
I talked to Minister Anand last week about what was happening, what More Canada is doing. Obviously, you know that the government has said it will provide as much material as it can, but also work hard to replace your supplies to make sure you have what you need. Is that happening already? And do you have any concerns about the speed at which what you're giving is being replaced?
Well, I sure do. And we need to replace our existing or up our existing stocks with a sense of urgency. And we need to continue to support Ukraine with that same sense of urgency. Hey, this is the challenge that all of our allies are facing, the depletion of their existing stocks, what industry can provide and what Ukraine needs. And finding that balance is critical going forward.
Okay, let's talk about what the forces are doing out east, that response to Fiona. Yet again, the military being called on to do important work domestically. I think more than 700, you can correct me on the number, personnel in Atlantic Canada. What does the situation on the ground look like more than a week later? How are the forces helping out there right now, General?
So, firstly, our thoughts are with the people of Atlantic Canada in these stressful and difficult times. And we're proud that your Canadian Armed Forces is out there to help as our priority. So what we're doing on the ground, well, first and foremost, in any domestic operation, our priority is life and limb. And in this case in particular, once that's done, we're focusing on helping local first responders clear lines of communication, so key roads, et cetera, and restore critical services, namely electricity. What we've learned in these domestic operations, the best way of doing it is empowering local commanders, and they respond to the priorities of local authorities. So in this case, our troops, our commander out in Atlantic Canada, he's got the authorities, he's got the resources, and he determines what numbers are required and where they're required in conjunction with the local, provincial, and municipal authorities.
And do you know what the numbers are at right now, given that Nova Scotia asked for some additional support, and I believe the minister said, yes, go ahead?
Yeah, so we're sitting at about 700 right now, but as we speak, we've got more forces flowing in from Gagetown to Nova Scotia. And these are pulled by the commander on the ground based on the tasks. And so very difficult to apply what we call a 1,000-mile screwdriver from Ottawa. And it's almost exactly 1,000 miles from Ottawa to Nova Scotia. Yeah. So, as we've learned, best thing, empower the commander on the ground. And this philosophy works. Going back to Ukraine, we've seen that with Ukrainian forces at the lowest level being empowered to get the job done on the ground, as opposed to Russian forces who are in many cases micromanaged from Russia. That system is proven to work, and it's working here.
Well, that's an interesting comparison. I'm sure you know this because I think we've talked about it before in light of some of the work that the forces did during the pandemic. And these conversations come up every time you are called in the hundreds to go and help, whether or not the military needs either a separate branch that is dealing with climate change and mitigation, or whether there should be a separate entity, a FEMA type situation in this country. What are your thoughts on whether that is even feasible here?
So the Canadian Armed Forces are always going to be the ultimate insurance policy, that force of last resort for the country. But that being said, with the increasing frequency and intensity of natural disasters, there's more capacity that's required. So, perhaps a layered approach where more capacity at the municipal and provincial levels, and we are layered on top of that. This is not going away. This is going to continue to increase. And I'm quite worried about our overall readiness, because we also see the world security situation deteriorating, and our national prosperity is underpinned by our ability to defend the rules-based international order. But our national prosperity is also underpinned by our ability to fight these disasters at home. So there's a real strong demand signal in both realms. On one case, on one side, for domestic emergencies, for the most part, what we provide is that formed, organized, disciplined labor pool that is self-deploying, self-sustaining, and it's got its own inherent command and control. And so that requires mass. On the other hand, the changing character of conflict is demanding more high-tech, more precision. And so as we design our force of the future, we got to balance these two competing tensions.
And you said right off the top there, you said you are supposed to be the last resort, the people that get called last. It seems to me that increasingly that is not the case. And so just to get a better sense then to my original question, do you think the military can do it with the numbers you have now? I know you're down about 10,000 bodies. You'd like to recruit 10,000 more bodies. Or do you think this has to be done by other people in some other way?
So that is a decision for government to make.
Sure.
But that being said, I am concerned about our readiness. I am concerned about our ability to respond at scale and at speed required. And so we're working on addressing all elements of our readiness, whether it's people, whether it's training, whether it's equipment, or sustainment. The spare parts, the ammunition, everything else that makes us able to respond with the right size and the right speed. But like I said, even if there's another organization that is formed, that is brought in, that can provide the capacity that provinces and municipalities require, I still expect we're going to be called out because of the increasing frequency and intensity of these disasters.
Got it. I want to ask you about vaccination, if I can. It has come up because the Conservative leader, Pierre Poilievre, raised it. You are, of course, the last level of within the federal government mandate where people are required to be vaccinated. I know that you had suggested you were going to look at tweaking the policy, and I also know that most soldiers are actually vaccinated. Can you just update me on whether you are going to make a change there or whether you're comfortable with where you are?
So I was hoping to have the change out by now, but it comes down to staff capacity at the strategic level as we get subsumed by other crises. But we're going to have a revised policy out very shortly that's going to focus on the operational requirement for vaccinations. You got to remember, and it goes back to being that force of last resort. We're an organization that protects people. And we've got to be able to protect our teammates at the same time so that we can produce that readiness, so that we can deliver when the nation really needs us.
So would that mean that some people would not be required to be vaccinated? I know you're about 98% vaccinated anyway, so it would be a very small number.
Yeah, so the details of the policy will come out. I'm told it's going to be put in front of me next week, and we'll get that out publicly here in short order.
Okay, well, I won't try and get it out of you then this morning, General. Thank you for making time, as always. It's nice to see you. Take good care.
Take care.
Thanks. That's General Wayne Eyre.